Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Power Table Conversations for Black Women. I am excited about the second season. We are bringing you Black women throughout the state who are going to share their brilliance, their beauty about the issues that are important to us and about us. So sit back, stay tuned, and enjoy the show. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to the Power Table Conversations for Black Women. Today we have my girl, my sister, Miss Erica. How are you?
I'm doing so well. It is so good to see you, Kelly.
It's always good to see you, love. It's always good to see you. It's so funny. We started together. Well, you were there before me, but we were on the Urban League Sacramento board of directors.
Yes.
And I don't even think we had much. We didn't even say a couple of things to each other just outside of our normal board activity. And so we've actually developed a friendship way after
Yes.
board participation, so which is hilarious because usually that's how we met, but we really, you know, we were on the plane together, and everybody know I can't stand to fly, and you had to
Had to
calmly
walk
talk
you
me
through the.
through,
Oh my goodness.
calmly
Yes,
help
girl. You
me.
were so funny because you travel all the
I,
time. And so
all
I
the
don't
time
know all the
hate
time.
hate flying. So
Oh,
when that turbulence started hitting, I was like, "Whoop, oh, oh." And so I was like, I like her because she didn't even panic with me. She just was like, "It's okay, it's okay.
hold your hand. Come on in.
Come on in, come on in." And so we have changed. We've moved on from where we were working at that time, and so now you are doing some phenomenal work around local government, and what's important for local government today is always staffing,
Yeah.
if nothing else. So just tell us a little bit about, where you are, your organization, what it's focused on, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty around kind of what you're doing around your apprenticeship program.
Sounds fantastic, and thank you. It has been, such a journey getting to know you, and it's been my honor, of course, to just follow you and see the work that you're doing for women and Black women in particular because it's so needed. I think the best way to describe the work that I do is I'm the CEO of the Institute for Local Government. And it's a nonprofit organization, but we are literally focused on local governments. So when you think about in California, there's 482 cities. There are 58 counties, and there are over 2,500 special districts like utilities and water districts and
Hmm.
fire districts. We do education and training for all of them. And I like to say that we do training, but we also do conscious counsel. We try and tell local government in a kind way how to do the best they can, how to do what they should be doing, how to maybe move the needle a little bit and get out of their silos, maybe think differently about their approach to not only their external community facing practices, but also their internal process with like workforce development or sustainability or climate. So we're definitely trying to make our mark and move local government into the spaces that it needs to be in to really continue to lead and support our communities.
Awesome. And as you know, government or public service or sector used to be the backbone of black folks,
Yeah.
particularly here in California. Often when we migrated here, those were the jobs that many, folks from the South were able to get because they didn't need college degrees, and it really helped build our middle class here in California. And so we had a lot of folks that owned homes, and just whether they were, doing trash or doing, or waste management, or whether they were, working as clerks in the
Yeah.
city. What does public sector work look like today?
Yeah. Well, the jobs are the same, right? I like to say that the public sector, especially local government, is a super sector. So any job you could imagine in the private sector, whether you're talking about IT, or you're talking about accountants, or you're talking about HR people, or you're talking about somebody like water or sewer, all of those jobs, right, are available in the public sector. And so your city, your county, your special district probably has a marketing person. They have people that are doing everything from administration and finance to all the gamut of things you've mentioned. So that is still the same. The jobs are the same. But the people are changing, right? You talked about how it used to be the place you wanted to be. But generationally, we're seeing a huge shift. You know, all of those people that spent all their time and energy and spent 20 years, 30 years at the city or the county, they're retiring. And they're not necessarily bringing up their kids. They're not necessarily having that next generation want to come in and do that work. And so we're seeing a change in the landscape of the people working in local government. And while it's amazing to continue to have people at the levels where we're talking about, right, that are, you know, that are helping with the garbage and that are helping in various
Right.
sort of those kinds of areas, where we're really seeing the gaps is in leadership. Our leadership has never
Mm.
really reflected the diversity of the communities. And that's something we're really starting to see and pay attention to and try to change to.
And why is it important for us to have representation in leadership?
You know, first of all, representation matters, period. We know this, right?
Right.
When we see someone that looks like us, it changes the way we feel about government. And I think government has gone through a huge problem over the last couple of years, last couple of administration cycles at the federal level. The trust levels in local government, of local government and government in general, are going down every year. So it used to be that you trusted your city, you trusted your county, you trusted kind of the local level, your mayor, right? Those levels are going down, and people don't feel the same level of trust with their local agency. And so people aren't really committing to what they think is a good environment, right? They're not sure that they can trust what's happening at the local level. They don't know what's happening at the local level. The other piece of this, Kelly, is you and your kids, you know, you might have been taught about local government growing up, but your kids probably weren't. So we're not
Hmm.
teaching it in school. It's not thought of as a pathway, and it's not being taught, so kids don't even know it's an option. And a lot of what we do at ILG is share with kids like, hey, this is an option for you. Did you know that you could go into a role like this if you love marketing, you love cybersecurity, you want to do something in this field, you could do it in government. And so sharing that information is really helpful, but we still have a huge problem with local government awareness and the job awareness with black women and people of color.
Hmm. That's so true because actually, I think it was the opposite. My family told me go to college so you don't have to work at the
Oh, wow.
government. Like they made it seem as if that was not the pathway, you know. And then we get into college, and some of the benefits are completely different in
They are. The
corporate
benefits have changed.
America and local government. Talk about like if someone wanted to go, why would they want to work in local government instead of the private sector?
Yeah. Well, the benefits are still good. They have changed, definitely, but they are still very, very good in terms of 401ks and pensions and all those things. They still exist. They're still good. The salaries are pretty good. And you do have that job security, right, that people are always talking about. You do like and want that kind of thing. But I think what people don't think about is, you know, this purpose, right? I do believe that the work that you do in local government can impact your community at a direct service level. And I think a lot of people are looking for those jobs of passion and they want to be able to give back and they want to be able to feel something and have meaning to the work that they're doing. And they're missing the fact that the local government sector actually does that. Like the decisions made at the local government level actually impact your neighborhood, your family, your kids, your parents. And I do think that that's a missing narrative. People aren't getting that story, they're not getting that message. And we have to do a better job as local government and the public sector in general of telling people and reminding them not only that they can make a difference in how government operates, but they can make a difference in how their communities look and feel. And that's huge.
Right. I love that to make a difference in how you're, because you know, when I'm driving down the street and if I hit a pothole, you know, I'm calling the
You're
city
calling. You're
immediately.
calling.
Like, you're not going to mess up my car. This
Kelly, you
cars
know the
cost too much
system.
money.
You know the system. So many people don't know the system. They don't know how to get it impacted. They don't know how to make that change. And that's the thing. You can change it from within.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, and I know, like, most of black women, we know that 2/3 of the households are headed by single black moms.
Yeah,
We know that 80% of black households in California are absolutely, breadwinners for their household. And then we look at the wage gap that continues to grow for black women, even when it either stays still for women as a whole or improves for other. And matter of fact, over the last year, we've seen the black woman's wage gap drop by 6 cents in
yeah,
terms of, or grow by 6 cents. So it's a bigger gap. If that was a flip to it grew or it dropped, there was a narrow by 6 cent, we'd be screaming from the rooftops.
yeah,
But the fact that it has grown by 6 cent, nobody really talks about it. But there are areas where we can see opportunities,
yeah,
and government is one of those areas, and getting people back into government. And recently, I've been thinking, you know what? We have all these cuts coming, but there are certain areas in local government that aren't getting cut.
yeah,
Law enforcement, what could it mean for black women to go into law enforcement? Never have we ever talked about that. But just think
yeah,
how differently our community would be policed
right.
if black women were in law enforcement. Um,
Every department would be better and different with
yep,
that diversity in their departments. Like
right,
we even had a conversation about planners at the city and the way people develop communities and like create
absolutely.
streets and build neighborhoods. That changes. The sidewalks change when people like women who are caring for families design them versus when men who are single design them. I mean, everything
Right.
changes when your perspective shifts.
Yeah, because the Commission on the Status of Women up in San Francisco, they actually decided to focus in general services,
Yeah,
um, and it was really about um, looking at the data of bus routes where women, they had a high percentage of women that were in on those bus routes, making sure that the streets were lit. So if they got off during when it was dark, that
yeah,
there was enough street lights, or when there were, they made sure the curves had the dips that they needed to have, because women were more likely to be pushing strollers and even
yes.
being more likely to be caregivers. So from that lens, they were able to say, we're going to make San Francisco a woman friendly city
Yes.
by using public service and all of the different departments. And we're going to look at that and keep them accountable. But you also are talking about um, your apprenticeships of things that are, sometimes even when you have a college degree, coming back to public sector and how
Yeah,
important your work could be there.
absolutely. So there's two different things, right? So, I mean, black women are improving their educational attainment by leaps and bounds. Black women their educational levels have grown so significantly in the last few years. So it's not necessarily an issue for those with bachelor's degrees of not being qualified. It might just be an issue of not knowing the system, not knowing how to apply for this particular job or what that job even is. And that's incumbent on public sector to do a better job clarifying what the job is, clarifying what they're looking for, recruiting in places where black women are going to see that position, and being intentional about it and marketing to those people so that they know that we actually are welcoming you into this space and that we want you to feel like this is a role for you. So, qualifications aside, if you're qualified, I mean, there's plenty of jobs out there, and most people just don't know what they do because the way they're described doesn't just say
Mm,
what they're doing. They're really hard to understand. It's pretty common to see a job for like a management analyst, and nobody knows what a management analyst is. It's
true.
very generic, right? So there's that problem, and we're working internally to fix that as a systematic change within our institutions, and local governments are on board to do that, make that happen. But there's another piece of it, which is something you said earlier about so often black women are doing a lot of things to support their entire family, right? They might have children. They might be the solo breadwinner. They can't take an internship and go back to school and get educated without getting a paycheck, right? So we're working now with the state and with philanthropic partners to do a pilot for a registered apprenticeship program, which is an earn and learn model where if you need to go back and get a certificate or an AA degree, you can earn that money and a living wage as an employee while you're learning on the job and learning at a community college to get certified to do the role full time. So it's an apprenticeable project, but it's not for necessarily and exclusively things like the trades, like being an electrician or a plumber,
Right.
but it's for things like being an accountant or an HR person or being an IT person, learning a new skill more on the office and administrative side is what we're calling it. So now there's going to be some new opportunities for people that are interested in doing that work at the public sector level.
I love that because we my major was communications, and that major though took me to places I
Yeah.
never imagined or didn't even know about. I
Yeah.
just got a degree in communications, and I knew I didn't want to write or be a journalist. But I it took me all the way to working in marketing,
Yeah.
doing business development, profit and loss, growth. It took me all through, and these were just jobs I had no idea about. I just did not know what that meant. Um, so how can we, because again, to your point, like no one knows what an analyst is. How can
Right.
we, as a partner, help Black women understand these roles?
Yeah, there's more work needs to be done. So we are trying to change it from the local government side, and a lot of local governments are saying, hey, this is a problem. We have 30% vacancy rates across the state. We have 20% vacancy rates across the state. We have to do something differently. So the good news is that the public sector and the local governments and the state kind of know we got to fix this.
Hmm.
They're working on it. It's a slow process, but it is happening, and there are some models out there. We've got some programs to try and move that needle. So that's kind of starting to happen. But there's also, I think, an awareness that's happening where people are realizing that as these traditionally kind of white male leaders retire, there's a space. There's a space, and
Hmm.
those spaces need to be filled by people that look like the communities that they're serving, and that includes leadership roles. And so, one of the things that I think Black women can do, and what we as partners and supporters of Black women can do, is not only recruit for Black women, but also when they get in that job, support them when they're
Yeah.
there. Because it's not just about getting the interview and getting the job, it's about keeping them there and making sure that they can be successful. I've heard so many anecdotes of people that have been brought in to put out a fire, Black women brought in to put out a fire that they
Yeah.
did not start. And then
Right.
when they can't put out that fire completely, they are then penalized for it. And I think it's being able to acknowledge what the expectations are, and so often they're unrealistic of Black women, and giving them the same support that you would give to another person, a male potentially, or a person that's not a person of color, giving those Black women the same support, the same grace, the same flexibility at all levels from the board down to get that job done. That's really, really key. And valuing them
Right.
monetarily and in general, valuing their opinions, valuing their voice, and valuing the insights that are brought because we're qualified. But sometimes there's more pressure than just the job. It is
Hmm.
literally all of the other things that come along
Yeah.
with being the only, with being the one, with being the one responsible. So, how do you provide mentorship? How do you provide support? How do you provide funding that's necessary to do the job well? Those are all key things, and I'd say it's any good leader will do that for their team, and they should especially make sure they're doing it for Black women if they want Black women to stay.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that because it is a journey when you're in the workplace. We all know, and it's oftentimes we're all by ourselves, and so we have to keep the doors open to make sure folks follow behind us. What do you feel like we need to know? Like, if we have a group of Black women that says, I want to work in public sector, I just don't know where to start.
Yeah, well, I mean, they can always call me. I think we all have to do the work
Right.
to help lift up those others in the space because I can tell you, I, in my journey, was lifted up by a few people in the black people in the public sector, but I was often lifted up by Caucasians and white people in the public sector that said, "Here's how you do this. Let me come with me." And I think we need to continue to do that for ourselves as well, and being willing to help ourselves and help our fellow black women along this ride. And it is a different ride from being an elected official because I think there's some great networks for electeds, but for staff it's a little harder because you're inside the cog, you're inside the engine, and you've got to figure out how to play the game. So I encourage people to have a mentor outside of their agency that can help give them that guidance and find one and pursue that person and hold on to them. And I think for us that are in the sector, be that for someone else. Because I think having that
Mm-hmm.
sounding board when things get hard, or when you want to have an opportunity and you need a letter of reference, or you need somebody to look
Right.
at that resume,
Right. Oh, especially look at that resume.
look at that
Um,
resume.
is there still those civil service tests to get into
Yes.
public sector?
There are lots of them. A lot of jobs require them. Some don't, but most require some kind of test. And the tests are different. Sometimes the test is just submit your qualifications. Sometimes the test is a little bit more technical where you have to prove that you know how to do a certain operation. You might require a certification, but yeah, there's quite a few that still have tests.
Okay. And so are there programs for people who want to, you know, do the test prior to,
Definitely.
because there's people with learning differences,
Absolutely.
are there cultural biases in the
Absolutely.
test still?
They're working through those. I will say that there is some work being done on cultural bias. There's work being done to minimize that implicit and otherwise bias that's in both the interview process and in the screening
Mhm.
process.
Mhm.
There are
Mhm.
pros and cons to that, I will tell you, because if you're looking for diversity, you'll try and screen diversity out.
Right.
So it is a little bit challenging, but I will tell you there are a lot of partnerships taking place with community-based organizations. I mean, I'll use the Urban League as a perfect example. The Urban League does a great job of teaching. There's a class you can take about how to get a job in the public sector, how to get a job at the city, how to get a job at the county, and we work with community-based organizations to talk through, here's what we're looking for, here's how you do your resume, here's how you maybe do some interviewing. So there are some resources and events that are available
Mhm.
regionally, so you just kind of have to find one for you. But your
Mhm.
community colleges, we're building partnerships with those so that if you go to the community college, we can help find a pathway. And then we're doing, I think, even more work with just community-based organizations, right? That are
Right.
the places where women are going just for additional support, right? And just needing to do the work, hard work for their families. We're going where they are instead of expecting them to come to us all the time.
Okay.
So we want to be more responsive, and I'm working on a statewide program to try and help local governments broadly implement some additional things and make it easy for them so that they can adopt them more quickly, so that they can be better champions for the diversity of black women joining their ranks, and making it a little easier and welcoming.
Well, I love it. I just love it. I just, I think if, we are intentional about this, we can help rebuild our middle class
Absolutely.
by helping Black women see opportunities in both public and private
Absolutely.
sectors, so that they find a place for themselves. If we've been really talking about this 50-year plan of what we want life to look like for Black women in California over the next 50 years. What would you say is you would want to see Black women in 50 years from now?
Well, I think there's so many hats that black women have to wear. Just so many, right? They could be wearing the black hat, they could be wearing the women hat, they could be wearing some other identity, they could be wearing the class hat. There's just so many hats, and I will say burdens, and so much labor that black women have to carry and do for everyone. We're often asked to carry everybody's water and do the work for everybody and explain everything to everybody and make sure everybody's taken care of. And I would hope that someone's taking care of black women. I would hope that someone's
Right.
doing a little more, for, I will say, us that for and for the community, right? To the better the community to assist, because we have carried that load for a very long time, And I think it would be amazing if someone lightened that load and did it willingly and
Mm-hmm.
graciously, and with the same skill, right? And with the
Right.
willingness and awareness that that has been long enough.
Right. Ooh, Lord, let's just put it on there. Put that out in the universe. Someone
Put it
else
out in the
care
universe.
for us. Ooh, that would be wonderful.
I mean,
Um,
and let us have a voice, right? And let us be
right.
able to say what we need and have that need be met. So
Right,
I
and not be, all the scope creep. It starts
right.
with black women and then it goes to everybody else. It's like I thought we were talking about black women. But so how can we find out more about your organization?
Yeah, you can always go to our website. We're at the Institute for Local Government. We're California based. It's ca-ilg.org. We're rebranding and revamping our website so it will look different in a few months, but it's up and running and live now. Lots of information there. And know that, the public sector is ready. The public sector is doing stuff and it's excited to make some changes. And there's a lot of momentum and interest, which is so amazing, from leadership all the way through the ranks to make these changes. And I think that communities are going to start to see it.
That's awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, thank you, Miss Erica. It's always wonderful, wonderful, wonderful to just talk to you and figure out and explore opportunities to conquer the world.
Always.
So I thank you for being here, and I look forward to our journey, our next
Same.
stop of our journey.
Thank you. Same, Kelly.
Hey, yeah. Wow, wasn't that great? I hope you enjoyed the episode and you found it empowering. You can follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and our YouTube channel. Also, you can find out more information about the California Black Women's Collective Empowerment Institute at www.cablackwomen'scollective.org. See you next time.